I would like to draw your attention to the Time Magazine Person of the Year poll. Um, if you're not familiar with this, Time Magazine is a influential American current affairs magazine. Um, and every year they have something called the Person of the Year. And they've had this since 1927. The first Person of the Year was Charles Lindbergh, the aviator. And since then, there's been a whole range of people, mostly in the category of sort of politicians and leaders, I would say. But there's been quite a few CEOs there as well, monarchs, sometimes generic people. For example, 1960 American scientists, 1966 baby boomers, 2003 the American soldiers. So there has been sort of generic things as well. Last year, indeed, simply the protester. 2006 was a famous one. Last year, 2011, the protester was focusing on the Arab Spring protests. I could see why they'd done that, because it would have been difficult to single out any, Egypt or Libya or Tunisia. So that's probably a good call. 2010, just thinking about this decade, was Mark Zuckerberg, which was controversial. I believe a lot of people at the time were also rooting for Julian Assange, but Mark Zuckerberg got it. I think that's somewhat justified. I mean, Facebook's over 1 billion users. It is enormously influential for someone who isn't even 30. Um, and in the last decade before that, I'll just quickly run through them. 2009, Ben Bernanke, chairman of the Federal Reserve. 2008, Barack Obama. 2007, Vladimir Putin. 2006, as I've already said, was all of us, sort of generically, because we all use the internet. 2005, the Good Samaritans, represented by Bono, Bill Gates, and Melinda Gates. That's for philanthropy, I guess. That was the year of Live 8. 2004, George W. Bush. 2003, the American Soldier. 2002, the Whistleblowers, represented by Cynthia Cooper, Colleen Rowley, and Sharon Watkins. They were people who exposed big scandals. 2001, Rudolph Giuliani, mayor of New York City, for his leadership during 9/11. A lot of people felt it should have actually been Bin Laden himself that year. 2000, George W. Bush. And I'll quickly run through the 90s. 1999, Jeffrey P. Bezos. 1998 was shared by Bill Clinton and Kenneth Starr. 1997, Andrew Grove. 1996, David Ho, who's a scientist, I believe. 1995, Newt Gingrich. 1994, Pope John Paul II. 1993, the Peacemakers, represented by Yasser Arafat, F.W. de Klerk, Nelson Mandela, and Yitzhak Rabin. 1992, Bill Clinton. 1991, Ted Turner. 1990, George H.W. Bush. I'll just go through my lifetime, I may as well. 1989, Mikhail Gorbachev. 1988, The Endangered Earth, Planet of the Year. That's interesting, but I'm not sure if that's... 1987, Mikhail Gorbachev again. 1986, Corazon Aquino. And lastly, 1985, Deng Xiaoping. That's the year I was born. So that just gives you an idea if you're not familiar with this. I'm just getting that directly from Wikipedia, by the way. Okay, what they always do is sort of have a public poll, which is not necessarily democratic. It doesn't necessarily mean the person with the most votes will get the nomination, but it's to give the editors a sort of indication of who's doing well. Apparently, Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, is in the lead. Given the little rocket test the other day, it's not surprising. I mean, he hasn't been out in the news this year, so I'm not too surprised by that. One thing I would point out about this accolade, Person of the Year, it's not necessarily an honourable title. It's simply the person who has had the most influence, for better or worse. And they themselves point out there's been many years there's been highly controversial figures. For instance, 1942, Joseph Stalin. 1938, Adolf Hitler. 39 again was Joseph Stalin. So Hitler and Stalin have both made a position there. I have to say I'm very surprised Chairman Mao's never been I would have put him in 1976 over Jimmy Carter, even though he died that year. I mean, the one criticism I would have with Time is it's a bit American-centric, a bit too biased towards Americans. Now, I appreciate the argument that America is the world's sole superpower now, and was for a good bit of the 20th century, but nevertheless, there's some very big names there that aren't on the list. I mean, I despise Chairman Mao, but he was massively influential. I would have put him in the 1976 listing. Deng Xiaoping actually made it twice in 78 and 85. But I would have put Chairman Mao somewhere in there. Richard Nixon, for example, made it twice in 71 and 72. Now, once, I think, would have been okay. And also some of the generic ones, I know the reason to do it, but it's a bit, I think it's a bit distracting. If it's going to be Person of the Year, then they should keep it to Person of the Year. Elizabeth II, she made it in 1952. There's a lot of different, yeah, I'll put a link to that list. So this year, some of the people who are being named, just bear with me a second to get that up. These are some of the people being named as possibilities on the list, and they sort of have this vote up, vote down thing. Anonymous, the anonymous hacking group, are doing very well because of their influence. Of course, the leader of this, name this. Who else do we have? Sorry, my computer's a little slow right now. Bashar Assad, the Syrian dictator, he's in there. Bearing in mind this is not necessarily an accolade. I mean, a lot of these are deeply controversial figures. But, you know, Assad's been responsible for a very large proportion of the bloodshed in the Syrian civil war, and that would be the reason he's there. There's a lot of CEOs, a few sportsmen there. Tim Cook, Angela Merkel, Benedict Cumberbatch, the actor, that's interesting. Tawakkol Karman, she was, I think she was one of the Nobel Peace Prize winners last year. Vladimir Putin, Ron Paul, David Cameron, Kony 2012 as a campaign, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, Michael Phelps, Alex Salmond, the leader of the SNP, I hope he doesn't win, Andrew Cuomo, Danny Boyle, Timothy Dolan, Adele, Mitt Romney, Kristen Wiig. A lot of these names, I have to be honest, I haven't heard of. Kim Jong-un, of course, Rush Limbaugh, Benjamin Netanyahu, Mario Monti, Scott Walker, Li Changpeng, Lady Gaga, Shakira, Psy the rapper, Nicolas Sarkozy, Marine Le Pen, sorry, I'm not reading this as I should be, Rupert Murdoch, Gillian Fellows, Anna Hazare, Eric Martin, Xi Jinping, Yuri Milner, Pippa Middleton, Jimmy Dimon, Grover Norquist, Harvey Weinstein, David Plouffe, Beyonce, Rihanna, Hillary Clinton, George Clooney, Sandra Fluke, Aziz Ansari, Mark Zuckerberg, Navi Pillay, Daniel Craig. There's a lot of names there. So it will be interesting to see who actually wins. My own choice, I've thought a bit about this. Mohamed Morsi's been named. I think he would be quite a strong candidate. He has been in the news a lot this year. He was the first leader to be democratically elected following the Arab Spring, and only in the last few months he's resorted to dictatorial tendencies. So he's been in the news a lot. And Egypt's a major nation, so. But my own bias would perhaps be towards. Sorry, my phone's going. I'll just check if that's important. Sorry about that. My own bias would be towards maybe Xi Jinping, the new paramount leader in China. Now, the reason I say that is for severalfold. Number one, he has been in the news quite a lot. Number two, He will be the paramount leader in a rising superpower and arguably the world's second most powerful country. Um, Now, I know Obama's been re-elected, but there is, and Obama's a very powerful and influential man, of course, but I don't think Obama should get there because I believe he's not held to a lot of his promises, and whilst he remains powerful, influence takes in a lot of things, not just power, although power is important. But anyway, Xi Jinping, the reason I think he should be Person of the Year is because of the direction, the critical stage that China is at. And all that pressure and expectation will be on Xi Jinping as to what direction China goes in. I've made this point before. I don't know how different he's going to be from the Hu era. We'll soon find out. Now, Kim Jong-un, I see why he's leading the poll, but North Korea is not as powerful as China. So I would say Xi Jinping should get it. But there's other people I would happily, or at least I could understand them being nominated. Psy, because of the sheer massive success of Gangnam Style. And I do think it is, if it's always world leaders, if it's always politicians, that's a bit boring. So it might be interesting to have someone who isn't a politician on this occasion, i.e. Psy. And the argument would be, A, the massive success that Gangnam Style's had, but also the power of social media, so to speak, the power of YouTube and so on. So Psy could be a candidate. Mohamed Morsi. Like I say, if Obama gets it, it's understandable enough. He is President of the United States, but I believe Obama has fallen short on a lot of his a lot of things he could have done. I believe he's very weak on the gun issue. I made another video about that actually, but Putin remains a very powerful figure, but his power is declining in Russia in a sense, or at least he's becoming more unpopular. His power may actually be growing, but he personally is becoming more unpopular. CEOs often make it high because of the influence of his or her company. But basically those are the people I would say who have probably had the biggest impact this year. Psy, Bashar Assad in Syria, Mohamed Morsi in Egypt, Kim Jong-un in North Korea, Xi Jinping in China. Although if we're looking at China, there's a number of Chinese figures who could be there. We could look at it another way, and instead of thinking about leaders in the Communist Party, we could think about outspoken, very brave dissidents like Qin Guangchen, people like that. Ai Weiwei, they could well have a claim as well. So it's quite something to be nominated Time Magazine Person of the Year. It's quite something. Now I know a few years back they were criticised when Tony Blair wasn't put in the Time 100 most influential. And I do understand that criticism because Blair was a very influential British Prime Minister. And they argued, well, we don't have other Western European leaders either, and Western European leaders aren't very powerful these days. That's tosh. They may not have the power of American presidents, but you know, Western Europe is still a powerful bloc, and it's still, when the British Prime Minister or the French President says something, people will notice. So it's not, I don't go along with that. Although, like I say, this year they've included David Cameron and ex-French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Talk of French presidents, Francois Hollande may be a candidate because he's one left-wing leader in Europe, big left-wing leader at the moment in an era of austerity when Europe's full of right-wingers like Angela Merkel and David Cameron. So in a few days we'll find out. I believe it's the 19th we'll know for certain. I know it's not far away, but if you can, just tell me who you think should be Person of the Year and give a reason. I'd say Xi Jinping because of the influence of China, because of the pressure that will be on him, or the expectations on him for the future direction of China. I'd say Xi Jinping. Let me know who you think and give a reason. Okay.